The ProAct Know-How.
Hi, this is ProAct Sam. Welcome to this episode of Living and Working Abroad vlog. What is it about permanent residency and EU members? How does it work? Well, permanent residency in the EU is slightly different than it is for non-EU citizens. So any EU citizen moving within the EU can register and get a permanent residency after 5 years. Now in the UK, that permanent residency is automatically issued and it's not certified, so there's no evidence of that, which is one of the reasons why the settled status scheme has been brought in. But in the EU and in Cyprus and countries like that, then EU citizens register locally to get an ID, and then after 5 years they can apply for a permanent residency, which gives them a more substantial commitment to be able to live and work in that EU country without having to apply for citizenship. In some countries like Ireland, UK, Germany and Portugal, you only have to be an expat for 5 years before you can apply for through the naturalisation route for citizenship. In countries like Cyprus it's 7 years, in Spain it's 10 years of residence before an expat can start applying for the citizenship process. So a permanent residency is a stepping stone between the two and gives a secure residency for expats. After 5 years, any expat should do that. So in the EU with Brexit, a UK citizen is best to apply for permanent residency to secure and maintain their existing EU citizen rights after Brexit, and that's available all through the transition period to the end of December 2020. Contact ProActPartnership.com. If you at our website ProActPartnership.com, contact us for more information on how we can help you on that. EU expats need to apply for settled status, which is the UK's additional registration. So it's retrospective. They have a pre-settled and a settled status, and you verify that you've got accommodation, a national insurance number, that you've been working and in the system in the UK, and then again you've got your residency rights for the rest of your life in the UK. What about for non-EU citizens? Non-EU citizens, there's a separate process altogether for registration, but if a family member of an EU citizen wants to register in the EU, it's not quite the same in EU land, so they can apply for their registration, but their registration as a dependent is always under a different remit. It's not the EU residency followed by the permanent residency after 5 years. It's a different status. However, this dependent relative status of an EU citizen is granted for 5 years. So if an EU expat relocates to an EU country like Cyprus with their Canadian, American, Russian, Kenyan or Indian spouse with non-EU citizenship, then they would gain a status which would be dependent on as a family member of an EU citizen, which runs for 5 years. At the end of those 5 years, the EU permanent residency status is still not available, so what they do is they renew for another 5 years on the same dependent EU dependent family member of an EU citizen. Again, the citizenship option becomes available even to a non-EU citizen. So after 5 years in UK, Ireland, France, Germany or Portugal, you could apply for citizenship. But in countries like Cyprus, it's 7 years. In Spain, it's 10 years before that non-EU citizen can apply for citizenship. So although after 5 years, permanent residency isn't available, in some countries citizenship for a non-EU citizen becomes available. So for a non-EU family member, it's a family member registration as a child or a spouse or working spouse under a 5-year residency, which can be renewed for another 5 years, which normally in most countries allows for the naturalisation process and citizenship if the expat wants to protect their long-term living and working abroad rights. If you want any more information, go along to our blogs at our website, at our YouTube channel, Living and Working Abroad. Subscribe to that to stay in touch. Follow our podcasts on Apple and SoundCloud, and keep in touch at our website at proactpartnership.com for the latest information on Brexit. Download our guides and keep in touch during a year of transition to make sure that EU expats from the UK and living in the UK protect their rights living and working abroad. It's proactpartnership.com. Contact us, go to our website now, have a look, and we'll speak to you again next time. Thank you.
The ProAct Know-How, brought to you by ProAct.